You know, when we think of comedy, we usually just think of entertainment, right? Something to make us laugh. But what if it's also one of the sharpest tools we have for taking a hard look at our world? Today, we are diving deep into satire and how making something ridiculous can actually be the most serious way to make a point. Let's get into it.
And that brings us to this really interesting question. Why is a joke sometimes the most serious thing you can say? It sounds like a total contradiction, doesn't it? Well, stick with me because we're about to figure out how humor can become this incredibly powerful way to critique, well, pretty much everything.
So, before we can really answer that big question, we all need to be on the same page. We'll start with the basics. What exactly is satire anyway?
Okay, now I want you to zero in on that last part. For the purpose of improving society. That is the secret sauce. This is what separates satire from just, being mean. A good satirist isn't just a comedian. They're actually a social critic who's using laughter as a tool to expose flaws and hopefully get us to think about making things better.
So how do they actually pull this off? It's not just random punchlines. There's a whole toolkit they use. So let's open up that toolbox and take a look at the 4 main techniques that every satirist has up their sleeve.
First up, exaggeration. This is basically the art of taking something and blowing it completely out of proportion. You take a situation or a personality trait and you just crank it up to 11 until it becomes totally absurd. And by doing that, you drag its flaws right out into the spotlight for everyone to see.
Oh, you've definitely seen this one before. Think about political cartoons. A politician gets caught telling a lie, and what happens the next day? Bam! They're drawn with a nose a mile long, just like Pinocchio. It's not subtle, but it's super effective at taking a complicated issue like dishonesty and boiling it down into one single powerful image.
Next tool in the kit, incongruity. This one is all about putting something where it just doesn't belong. Our brains are actually wired to notice when things feel off. And that little wait a minute moment, that's exactly where the satire gets you. For example, picture this, a billionaire in a super fancy suit complaining that their daily latte costs 50 cents too much. The whole scene is just wrong, right? It's incongruous. And the absurdity of that complaint, coming from someone with so much money, instantly highlights how out of touch they might be with regular life.
Our third tool is reversal, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's all about flipping the script. A satirist will take our normal expectations of how the world is supposed to work, who's in charge, what's supposed to happen first, and they turn it completely upside down. And in doing that, they reveal something totally surprising about how things normally are. Just imagine a story where the students run the school and all the teachers have to stay up late doing homework. It's a funny picture for sure, but that reversal also makes us think about things like authority and the pressures of school from a whole new angle. By flipping everything, we suddenly see how this system works.
And the final tool is parody. This one is a special kind of imitation. A parody copies the unique style of something, like a person or a movie or a song, but it applies that style to a totally ridiculous subject. And by doing that, it makes fun of the original in a really clever way.
I mean, we see parody everywhere in pop culture. Think of Weird Al taking some huge pop hit and changing all the lyrics to be about lasagna. Or a book like The True Story of the Three Little Pigs, which tells the classic story from the wolf's point of view. They both use imitation to be funny, but also to give us a fresh, critical look at something we thought we knew.
Okay, so now we have our 4 tools: exaggeration, incongruity, reversal, and parody. Let's see how they all come together in a classic piece of literature. We're going to take a look at Nikolai Gogol's incredibly weird and brilliant short story, The Nose.
And yes, you heard that right. A guy wakes up one morning and his nose is just gone. And as if that's not bad enough, the nose is now walking around town dressed as a high-ranking government official who's actually more important than he is. It is completely absurd, and that absurdity is what drives the whole satire.
So let's break this down. Gogol is using all 4 techniques here. The nose becoming a top official, that's exaggeration, taking the obsession with social status to a ridiculous level. Finding a nose praying at a church, pure incongruity. The reversal is so powerful. A body part is suddenly higher up on the social ladder than its owner. And the whole wild story is told in this very serious, formal tone, which makes it a fantastic parody of the literature of his time.
As a story like The Nose shows us, the whole point of satire is to make a serious point. Gogol wasn't just writing a silly story, he was critiquing the obsession with rank in his society. So how can we use those same tools today to send a powerful message?
This process isn't just for classic Russian authors. It's basically a blueprint for anyone who wants to create satire today. Imagine making your own satirical public service announcement. You'd start with an issue you really care about. Then you'd pick the right tools for the job. Maybe a little exaggeration here, a little parody there. The goal is always the same. Use humor to not just make people laugh, but to make them think.
So this brings us all the way back to our big question. We've defined what satire is, we've looked at the tools of the trade, and we've seen it in action. So, let's put it all together. Why is this so important? Why does it matter?
Well, when it comes right down to it, satire matters because it gives us a completely different way to see the world. It lets creators tackle really tough, sometimes controversial subjects in a way that people will actually listen to. Laughter is the way in. It kind of disarms us just long enough for a powerful truth to sink in.
You can almost think of the humor in satire like a Trojan horse. It gets past all our defenses because it's entertaining, but hidden inside is a really serious message. It's that classic 1-2 punch. First, it makes you laugh, and then it makes you think.
So, I'll leave you with this challenge. You now have the 4 tools of the satirist: exaggeration, incongruity, reversal, and parody. Start looking for them in the world around you, on the news, in pop culture, even in your own life. What do you see out there that's just a little bit absurd, and maybe, just maybe, is waiting for a punchline with a purpose?